Library Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Chapter 46 Uddhava visits Vṛndāvana. Nanda Maharaja returned to Vṛndāvana without Krishna and Balarama. He was accompanied only by the cowherd boys and men. It was certainly a very pathetic scene for the Gopas, Mother Yasoda, Srimati Radharani and all the other residents of Vṛndāvana. Many devotees have tried to make adjustments to Krishna's being away from Vṛndāvana because, according to expert opinion, Krishna, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, never goes even a step out of Vṛndāvana. He always remains there. The explanation of expert devotees is that Krishna was actually not absent from Vṛndāvana, he came back with Nanda Maharaja as promised. When Krishna was starting for Mathura on the chariot driven by Akrura and the Gopas were blocking the way, Krishna assured them that he was coming back just after finishing his business in Mathura. He told them not to be overwhelmed and in this way pacified them. But when he failed to come back with Nanda Maharaja, it appeared that he either cheated them or could not keep his promise. Expert devotees, however, have decided that Krishna was neither a cheater nor a breaker of promises. Krishna, in his original identity, returned with Nanda Maharaja and stayed with the Gopas and Mother Yasoda in his bhava expansion. Krishna and Balarama remained in Mathura, not in their original forms but in their expansions as Vāsadeva and Sankarsana. The real Krishna and Balarama were in Vṛndāvana in their bhava manifestation, whereas in Mathura they appeared in the Prabhava and Vibhava expansions. This is the expert opinion of advanced devotees of Krishna. Externally, however, they were absent from Vṛndāvana. Therefore, when Nanda Maharaja was preparing to return to Vṛndāvana, there was some discussion between him and the boys concerning how they could live in separation. The conclusion to separate was reached by mutual agreement. Vāsadeva and Devaki, who happened to be the real parents of Krishna and Balarama, wanted to keep them now because of the death of Kamsa. While Kamsa was alive, Krishna and Balarama were kept under the protection of Nanda Maharaja in Vṛndāvana. Now, naturally, the father and mother of Krishna and Balarama wanted them to remain, specifically for the reformatory function of purification, the sacred thread ceremony. They also wanted to give them a proper education, for this is the duty of the father. Another consideration was that all the friends of Kamsa outside Mathura were planning to attack Mathura. For that reason also Krishna's presence was required. Krishna did not want Vṛndāvana disturbed by enemies like Danavakra and Jarasandha. If Krishna were to go to Vṛndāvana, these enemies would not only attack Mathura but would go on to Vṛndāvana, and the peaceful inhabitants of Vṛndāvana would be disturbed. Krishna therefore decided to remain in Mathura, and Nanda Maharaja went back to Vṛndāvana. Although the inhabitants of Vṛndāvana felt separation from Krishna, the resulting ecstasy, bhava, caused them to perceive that Krishna was always present with them by his lila, or pastimes. Since Krishna had departed from Vṛndāvana and gone to Mathura, the inhabitants of Vṛndāvana, especially Mother Yasoda, Nanda Maharaja, Srimati Radharani, the Gopas and the cowherd boys, were simply thinking of Krishna at every step. They were thinking, here Krishna was playing in this way. Here Krishna was blowing his flute. Krishna was joking with us in this way, and Krishna was embracing us like this. This is called Lila Smarana, and it is the process of association with Krishna most recommended by great devotees. Even Lord Chaitanya, when he was at Puri, enjoyed Lila Smarana association with Krishna. Those in the most exalted position of devotional service and ecstasy can live with Krishna always by remembering his pastimes. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given us a transcendental literature entitled Krishna Bhavanamrita, which is full with Krishna's pastimes. Exalted devotees can remain absorbed in Krishna thought by reading such books. Any book of Krishna Lila, even this book, Krishna, or our teachings of Lord Chaitanya, is actually solace for devotees feeling separation from Krishna. That Krishna and Balarama did not return to Vṛndāvana can be adjusted as follows. They did not break their promise to return to Vṛndāvana, nor were they absent, but their presence was necessary in Mathura. In the meantime, Uddhava, a cousin brother of Krishna's, came to see Krishna from Dwaraka. He was the son of Vāsudeva's brother and was almost the same age as Krishna. His bodily features resembled Krishna's almost exactly. After Krishna returned from his teacher's home, he was pleased to see Uddhava, who happened to be his dearmost friend. Krishna wanted to send him to Vṛndāvana with a message to the residents to pacify their deep feelings of separation. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Ye yadamam prapadyantam statha vibhajamiyaham, Krishna is very responsive. He responds in proportion to the devotee's advancement in devotional service. Thus, as the Gopas were thinking of Krishna in separation 24 hours a day, so Krishna was also always thinking of the Gopas, Mother Yasoda, Nanda Maharaja and the other residents of Vṛndāvana. Although he appeared to be away from them, He could understand how they were transcendentally aggrieved, and so he immediately wanted to send Uddhava to give them a message of solace. Uddhava is described as the most exalted personality in the Vṛṣṇa dynasty, being almost equal to Krishna. He was a great friend of Krishna's, and being the direct student of Brihaspati, the teacher and priest of the heavenly planets, he was very intelligent and sharp in decision. Intellectually, he was highly qualified. Krishna, being his very loving friend, wanted to send Uddhava to Vṛndāvana just to study the highly elevated ecstatic devotional service practiced there. Even if one is highly elevated in material education and is even the disciple of Brihaspati, he still has to learn from the gopis and the other residents of Vṛndāvana how to love Krishna to the highest degree. It was Krishna's special favor to Uddhava to send him to Vṛndāvana with a message for the residents there, which was meant to pacify them. Lord Krishna is also named Hari, which means one who takes away all distress from the surrendered souls. Lord Chaitanya states that there cannot at any time be a worship as exalted as that realized by the gopis. Being very anxious about the gopis' grief, Krishna talked with Uddhava and politely requested him to go to Vṛndāvana. Shaking Uddhava's hand with his own hands, he said, "My dear gentle friend Uddhava, please go immediately to Vṛndāvana and try to pacify my father and mother, Nanda Maharaja and Yasoda Devi, and the gopis. They are grief-stricken, as if suffering from great ailments. Go and give them a message. I hope their ailments will be partially relieved. The gopis are always absorbed in thoughts of me. They have dedicated body, desire, life and soul to me. I am anxious not only for the gopis but for anyone who sacrifices society, friendship, love and personal comforts for me. It is my duty to protect such exalted devotees. The gopis are the most dear. They always think of me in such a way that they remain overwhelmed and almost dead in anxiety due to separation from me. They are keeping alive simply by thinking that I am returning to them very soon." Requested by Lord Krishna, Uddhava immediately left on his chariot and carried the message to Gokula. He approached Vṛndāvana at sunset, when the cows were returning home from the pasturing ground. Uddhava and his chariot were covered by the dust raised by the hooves of the cows. He saw bulls running after cows for mating. Other cows, with overladen milk bags, were running after their calves to feed them with milk. Uddhava saw that the entire land of Vṛndāvana was filled with white cows and their calves, running here and there all over Gokula, and he could hear the sound of milking. Every residential house in Vṛndāvana was decorated for the worship of the sun god and the fire god and for the reception of guests, cows, brahmanas and demigods. Every home was sanctified by lights and incense. All over Vṛndāvana there were nice gardens filled with flowers and the sounds of humming bees and singing birds. The lakes were filled with lotus flowers and with ducks and swans. Uddhava entered the house of Nanda Maharaja and was received as a representative of Vāsadeva. Nanda Maharaja offered him a sitting place and sat down with him to ask about messages from Krishna, Balarama and other family members in Mathura. He could understand that Uddhava was a very confidential friend of Krishna's and therefore must have come with good messages. "My dear Uddhava," he said, "how is my friend Vāsadeva enjoying life? He is now released from the prison of Kamsa, and he is now with his friends and his children, Krishna and Balarama. So he must be very happy. Tell me about him and his welfare. We are also very happy that Kamsa, the most sinful demon, has been killed. He was always envious of the family of the Yadus, his relatives. Now, because of his sinful activities, he is dead and gone, along with all his brothers. Please let us know whether Krishna now remembers his father and mother and his friends and companions in Vṛndāvana. Does he like to remember his cows, his gopis, his Govardhana hill, his pasturing grounds in Vṛndāvana? Or has he now forgotten all these? Is there any possibility of his coming back to his friends and relatives so we can again see his beautiful face, with its raised nose and lotus-like eyes? We remember how he saved us from the forest fire, how he saved us from the great snake Kaliya in the Yamuna, and how he saved us from so many other demons, and we simply think of how much we are obliged to him for giving us protection in many dangerous situations. My dear Uddhava, when we think of Krishna's beautiful face and eyes and his different activities here in Vṛndāvana, we become so overwhelmed that all our activities cease. We simply think of Krishna, how he used to smile and how he looked upon us with grace. When we go to the banks of the Yamuna or the lakes of Vṛndāvana or near Govardhana hill or the pasturing fields, we see that the impressions of Krishna's footprints are still on the surface of the earth. We remember him playing in those places, because he was constantly visiting them. When his appearance within our minds becomes manifest, we immediately become absorbed in thought of him. We think, therefore, that Krishna and Balarama may be chief demigods in heaven who have appeared before us like ordinary boys to execute particular duties on earth. This was foretold by Garga Muni when making Krishna's horoscope. If Krishna were not a great personality, how could he have killed Kamsa, who possessed the strength of 10,000 elephants? Besides Kamsa, There were the very strong wrestlers, as well as the giant elephant Kuvalayapita. Krishna killed all these animals and demons just as a lion kills an ordinary animal. How wonderful it is that Krishna took in one hand the big, heavy bow made of three-joined palm trees and broke it very quickly. How wonderful it is that for 7 days continuously he held up Govardhana hill with one hand. How wonderful it is that he has killed all the demons like Pralambasura, Dhanukasura, Aristasura, Trinavarta and Bakasura. They were so strong that even the demigods in the heavenly planets were afraid of them, but Krishna killed them as easily as anything. While describing the uncommon activities of Krishna before Uddhava, Nanda Maharaja gradually became overwhelmed and could no longer speak. As for Mother Yasoda, she sat by the side of her husband and heard the pastimes of Krishna without speaking. She simply cried incessantly, and milk poured from her breasts. When Uddhava saw Maharaja Nanda and Yasoda so extraordinarily overwhelmed with thoughts of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and when he experienced their extraordinary affection for him, he also became overwhelmed and spoke as follows: "My dear Mother Yasoda and Nanda Maharaja, you are most respectable among human beings because no one but you can meditate in such transcendental ecstasy." Uddhava continued, "Balarama and Krishna are the original personalities of Godhead, from whom the cosmic manifestation emanates. They are chief among all personalities. Each of them is both the material and the efficient cause of this material creation. Material nature is conducted by the Purusa incarnations, who all act under Krishna and Balarama. By their partial representation they enter the hearts of all living entities. They are the source of all knowledge and all forgetfulness also. This is confirmed by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, I am present in everyone's heart, and I cause one to remember and forget. I am the original compiler of the Vedanta, and I am the actual knower of the Vedas." Uddhava continued, "If at the time of death a person can fix his pure mind upon Krishna even for a moment, after giving up his material body he becomes eligible to appear in his original, spiritual body, just as the sun rises with all illumination. Passing from his life in this way, he immediately enters into the spiritual kingdom, Vaikuntha. This is the result of Krishna-conscious practice. If we practice Krishna consciousness in this present body while in a healthy condition and in good mind, simply by chanting the holy Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, we will have every possibility of fixing the mind upon Krishna at the time of death. If we do this, then our lives become successful without any doubt. But if we keep our minds always absorbed in fruitive activities for material enjoyment, then naturally at the time of death we shall think of such activities and again be forced to enter material, conditioned bodies to suffer the threefold miseries of material existence. Therefore, to remain always absorbed in Krishna consciousness was the standard of the inhabitants of Vṛndāvana, as exhibited by Maharaja Nanda, Yasoda and the Gopas. If we can simply follow in their footsteps, even to a minute proportion, our lives will surely become successful, and we shall enter the spiritual kingdom, Vaikuntha." "My dear Mother Yasoda and Nanda Maharaja," Uddhava continued, "you have thus fixed your minds wholly and solely upon that Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, whose transcendental form is the cause of impersonal Brahman. The Brahman effulgence is only the bodily rays of Narayana, and because you are always absorbed in ecstatic thought of Krishna and Balarama, what pious activity remains for you to perform? I have brought a message from Krishna that he will very soon come back to Vṛndāvana and satisfy you by his personal presence. Krishna promised that he would come back to Vṛndāvana after finishing his business in Mathura. This promise he will surely fulfill. I therefore request the two of you, who are the best among all who are fortunate, not to be aggrieved on account of Krishna's absence. You are already perceiving his presence 24 hours a day, yet he will come and see you very soon. Actually he is present everywhere and in everyone's heart, just as fire is present in wood. Since Krishna is the Supersoul, he regards everyone equally, he sees no one as his enemy, no one as his friend, and no one is lower or higher than him. He actually has no father, mother, brother or relative, nor does he require society, friendship and love. He does not have a material body like us, he never appears or takes birth like an ordinary human being. He does not appear in higher or lower species of life like ordinary living entities, who are forced to take birth on account of their previous fruitive activities. He appears by his internal potency just to give protection to his devotees. He is never influenced by the modes of material nature, but when he appears within this material world he seems to act like an ordinary living entity under the spell of the modes of material nature. But in fact he is the overseer of this material creation, and while remaining unaffected by the material modes of nature, he creates, maintains and dissolves the whole cosmic manifestation. We wrongly look upon Krishna and Balarama as ordinary human beings, just as whirling men see the whole world whirling around them. The personality of Godhead is no one's son, he is actually everyone's father, Mother and Supreme Controller. There is no doubt of this. Whatever is already being experienced, whatever is not being experienced, whatever already exists, does not exist or will exist in the future, whatever is the smallest and whatever is the biggest have no existence outside the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything rests in him, but he is untouched by everything manifested. Nanda and Uddhava thus passed the whole night discussing Krishna. In the morning, the Gopas prepared for morning arati by lighting their lamps and sprinkling butter mixed with yogurt. After finishing their Mangala arati, they engaged themselves in churning butter from yogurt. While the Gopas were thus engaged, the lamps reflected on their ornaments made the ornaments still brighter. Their churning rods, their arms, their earrings, their bangles, their breasts, everything moved, and kumkuma powder gave their faces a saffron luster comparable to the rising sun. While making sounds by churning, they also sang the glories of Krishna. The two sound vibrations mixed together, ascended to the sky and sanctified the whole atmosphere. After sunrise the Gopas came as usual to offer their respects to Nanda Maharaja and Yasoda, but when they saw the golden chariot of Uddhava at the door, they began to inquire among themselves, what was that chariot, and to whom did it belong? Some of them inquired whether Akrura, who had taken away Krishna, had returned. They were not very much pleased with Akrura because, being engaged in the service of Kamsa, he had taken lotus-eyed Krishna away to the city of Mathura. All the Gopas conjectured that Akrura might have come again to fulfill another cruel plan. But they thought, we are now dead bodies without our Supreme Master, Krishna. What further act can Akrura perpetrate against these dead bodies? While they were talking in this way, Uddhava finished his morning ablutions, prayers and chanting and came before them. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 46th chapter of Krishna. Uddhava visits Vṛndāvana.